The F350 with the Powerstroke 6.0. It's a 2007 model. All back together, runs great. I'm going to cover a few things with it. It is bulletproof. We did go with the ARP studs. Previous to that, stuff I could get to without taking the engine out of the truck, I went ahead and went with the bulletproof diesel out of Mesa, Arizona, the water pump, and then there's the adapter fitting for a 6.0 to get rid of that electric clutch. What happened is I was watching as the engine revved up, sometimes that would kick in and not. And the only reason I knew that is with the scan gauge too. I'm going to show you that. I've also added a MaxTow with the EGTs, and it's interesting what happens on that gauge as far as the temperature coming out of the exhaust. And we put that on the driver's side, and of course keep in mind the driver's side is 2, 4, 6, 8. And when you put it right there at the number 8 cylinder where everything comes together, 1200 degrees temperature at times towing. So I want to watch that, so when I'm pulling my, hauling hay, hauling the camper, hauling anything, my equipment trailer. But I'm going to show you where I located that gauge on the inside. Also, I upgraded the CAC tubes on the hot side, and they're really thick American-made boots. I've already done a video on those. Keep in mind when you do this, you'll want to make sure you change the oil, change your fuel filters. There's the 2 fuel filters. I haven't done a video on that, but there's plenty of videos out there how to change those 2 filters every 10 to 15,000 miles. The one in the frame rail where the pump's at, as well as on the top side. Just take care of these trucks and they'll take care of you. So the oil, I ended up putting the Arch oil additive to this. As far as injectors, I went ahead and bought 8 brand new, the Motorcraft, the Ford remanufactured injectors. They come with a 2-year warranty. I wanted to start this off right. Anything that looked bad or looked failing, I fixed it or replaced it. Also the banjo bolts that go into the heads, there's 2 of those, and there's an upgrade. There was an upgrade in 2008, but if you look at the 2007 older, it was like a check valve was inside of those banjo bolts. And it really didn't make much sense to me. If you had some fuel contamination, you could restrict the flow of the diesel to the heads, to the motors, and then have a idle or rough running issue with your 6.0. So of course you can find those online, the upgrades. Just go with the 2008. They put them in the 6.4s, but check those out if that'll be helpful. But what we'll do now is go inside for the initial startup, and I'll tell you what I experienced on the startup. Looking for your low pressure, oil pressure, the gauge as it read, but also watching the scan gauge when it finally, your high pressure oil pump, how it boosts up 500 PSI, starts to run, idled right out from there. Awesome. Now you just don't know what kind of power loss you have with blown head gaskets, maybe issues with fuel injectors going bad. But let's go check this out inside on the startup first thing this morning. So the inside of this truck, my vehicle, 2007 F350 4-wheel drive. On the initial startup, cranking your low pressure oil pump, and it's all mechanical, that pressure started to increase, and then from there, you don't want to cycle it, trying to start it all at one time. I let it turn over for about 10 seconds and then give the starter a break. I started noticing on the scan gauge too. Now let me tell you the installation of this panel. I drilled a hole through the panel. There's a connection fitting for the scan gauge on the back side. Put it through the dash and plugged it in so I can monitor. There's a number of things that you can monitor if you haven't played with one of these. Then I found the MaxTow, installed it, and of course when I ordered it, you could get the drill and tap to tap into the exhaust manifold. Of course I did that while it was all apart, and so I didn't have to worry about the metal shavings, but it's highly recommended. You can install this with the motor in the vehicle, even with the exhaust manifold still bolted to the engine. Just use caution when you drill that out. Take a magnet, put it up in the hole, get as many shavings as you can, maybe even use a shop vac, suck those shavings out. But let's go ahead and do a start up. Okay, the MaxTow, it's the MaxTow Double Vision. You can find them online. There's going to be the dial readout as well as your digital readout, and there is the scan gauge in what I am watching. Your ICP pressure, you'll watch that increase, water temperature in Fahrenheit, and then you've got your engine oil temperature. And I actually have been watching the FICM power, and the FICM power has never gone below the 47. If it hits 45 or below, your FICM is trying to go out on you. So let's go ahead and get started. Of course, the oil pressure came right up. That's your ICP pressure, 14, 13. I wasn't watching that, but it slowly, as the initial startup, the gauge on the dash, that oil pressure gauge started to slightly go up, and then when it hit about the half point, you could watch the ICP pressure, and it hit like 50, 70, 100, and I think it was almost at 200 ICP that the engine started up. Of course, rough running, trying to get the fuel and everything, and then I just let it idle for a while to make sure we were good to go. And as you know, working the air bubbles out of everything from the fuel lines to the oil pressure, the oil in the engine. But I am very happy with the way that this is running now. Something I noticed, right now we're at 330 degrees in the exhaust manifold, and what I do is when that says 40 and I come home to park it, I will take and make sure that it is less than 40, 38, 39 before I shut the engine down, so it has a chance to cool down. You don't want to take the engine when it's real hot and then go ahead and shut it off with those high temperatures in the exhaust manifolds, turbo, all of that. Well, I hope this video will encourage you to maybe do your own mechanic work, but it is possible. And right now that truck has a little over 250,000 miles on it, and being bulletproof now, I'm sure I can get a whole lot more miles out of it. You all have a great day.